At the very beginning of the movie, we're introduced to Jackie, a seasoned police captain, driving alone toward an unknown location. Just moments earlier, an informant had given him extremely sensitive information. When Jackie speaks to the informant, it's clear the man is terrified. Trying to calm him down, Jackie says he'll come meet him personally and tells him not to worry. But the moment Jackie steps out of his car, a bullet comes flying at him out of nowhere. Suddenly, several masked men appear and open fire. Jackie quickly takes cover and returns fire, holding his ground for a moment. Still, the attackers manage to hit him, and he collapses to the ground, bleeding. Even in that critical state, Jackie fires a few empty shots as a distraction, then hurriedly types a message on his phone and sends it. He tosses the phone into the water just seconds before the masked men walk up and unload several more bullets into him, killing him on the spot. Following Jackie's brutal murder, the FBI launches an investigation to uncover who was behind the attack and why he had to be silenced. The FBI's first suspicion immediately falls on Jackie's own department, since most of the city's cops are known to be corrupt and on the take. Jackie's teammates, Numa, Ro, Lola, and Jerry, are all members of Miami Police's Technical Narcotics Unit. They regularly seize large quantities of drugs along with stacks of cash from all over the city, which leads the FBI to believe the murder may have stemmed from an internal dispute over money. All of them deny any involvement, insisting that Jackie was a close friend to each of them. But FBI agent Dale isn't the type to back off easily and keeps pushing, questioning them relentlessly until tensions rise. While the others manage to keep their composure, Jerry snaps when Dale starts making personal digs, hinting that everyone in the department knew about her affair with Jackie and suggesting that the backup pistol on her shoulder actually belonged to him. And those remarks push Jerry over the edge as she lunges at Dale and starts punching him, forcing the others to struggle just to break up the fight. Meanwhile, in another room, Lieutenant Dan is talking to Police Chief Tom. After Jackie's death, Dan has been promoted to the vacant captain's post and has also been questioned by the FBI, though they've accepted his alibi. Dan tells Tom he wants to launch an internal investigation into Jackie's murder, but Tom shuts it down, warning that doing so would only put the department under even heavier FBI scrutiny. And for now, staying quiet is their only option. As they talk, the fight between JD and Dale is still raging, and that's when Tom learns from Dan that Dale is actually JD's brother, proof that the FBI won't even go easy on family. Once the chaos settles, Dan runs into JD in the restroom, where he bluntly admits that becoming a cop was the biggest mistake of his life. Every morning he wakes up wondering if this will be his last day alive. The FBI is driving them all insane, and yet somehow the rest of the department seems way too relaxed about everything. After the FBI leaves, the team kicks back outside, laughing and partying like they've got nothing to worry about. One look at the way they're dressed and you'd never guess they're cops. They look more like street gangsters, but hey, that's American police for you. While everyone else stays in chill mode, Dan is clearly on edge, weighed down by stress. That's when he suddenly receives a piece of confidential intel. A house in Hialeah is supposedly loaded with drugs and cash. Dan doesn't waste a second. He rolls out with his team and their trained K9, Wilbur. The moment they reach the house, Wilbur starts barking, a clear sign there's a stash inside. When they knock, a woman named Daisy opens the door and flat out denies there are any drugs in the house, also pointing out that the cops don't have a search warrant. Dan calmly hands her a document and says if she signs it, they'll leave immediately. Daisy signs without a second thought, unaware that by doing so, she's just given them legal consent to search the house. Next, they notice Wilbur repeatedly barking and staring upward. This dog can sniff out money just as easily as booze and drugs. Following his lead, they look up and spot a ceiling hatch. When they pull it down, a ladder drops out. Dan and Jerry climb up, only to find an empty room at first. Then they notice a wire running along one wall, and when they pull it, a hidden compartment slides open. There's no doubt the cash they came for is stashed behind it. Dan and JD call the others up and tell them to break through the wall, then head back downstairs to question Daisy. She explains that the house belonged to her sick grandmother, who has since passed away, and that she's been living there ever since. She claims she has no idea what's hidden inside the house. Meanwhile, the rest of the team finishes tearing down the wall, and when Dan steps inside, he finds a bucket packed with cash, nearly $1.5 million in it. That's when it hits them. This place could be hiding hundreds of millions of dollars, far more than they ever imagined. The sheer amount of cash rattles Dan, because if even a single dollar goes missing, they're all looking at prison time. He immediately collects everyone's phones so no one can contact the outside world, then tells JD they need to pull all the money out and count it on site. If anything disappears later, it'll be obvious. JD suggests calling the police chief or DEA agent Nixon first, but Dan shuts that idea down. From the side, Daisy casually says they could just take the money and run, that it would probably be the best move for everyone because things are about to get ugly. Her words clearly shake Dan. Meanwhile, Ro tries to make a quick call to tell the girls he'll be late, but Dan flatly refuses to let him use his phone. A little later, they notice a car pulled up on the street outside, and inside are 2 local cops, which immediately raises red flags. Someone may have tipped them off. Dan and JD step in and tell the officers there's no need for them to get involved and that they'll handle the situation themselves. As they talk, JD suddenly narrows his eyes at one of the cops, feeling like he's seen him before, but the man brushes it off, claiming they've never met. Blocked and shut down, the 2 officers eventually leave, but almost as soon as they're gone, it clicks for JD. The guy wasn't a real cop anymore. He was an ex-VACR officer from a department that was shut down months earlier over corruption charges. That raises a terrifying question. How did he find out about this crime scene? In the middle of all this, Detective Rose secretly uses a phone and sends a message saying they've just hit a jackpot but Dan hasn't told anyone about it, hinting that something big is about to go down behind their backs. JD also starts growing suspicious of Dan, though despite the tension, Dan has everyone finish counting the cash. During this time, Daisy is kept in handcuffs, and Dan later questions her himself. Daisy explains that she used to get calls telling her to leave the house for a few hours every day, and she always complied because she was paid to do so, never once asking what those people were actually doing inside her home. Dan is then shocked to discover that Daisy was once a police informant, and he and JD tell her that if she helps them on this case, she'll be rewarded. By the book, an informant can receive up to 20% of whatever is recovered, but Daisy stays silent and gives no response. Suddenly, the phone in front of them starts ringing, and when JD picks it up, a man with a deep, menacing voice comes on the line and threatens them, warning that if they don't leave within 30 minutes, things will turn very ugly. The caller adds that no one would want to die over just $150,000, so they should leave the money where it was and walk away. That's when a red flag goes up in Dan's head. If there are millions of dollars here, why is this guy only talking about a $150K? At the same time, JD is stunned because Dan had told him the tip was about $300,000, which means Dan has already been lying. When JD presses him for answers, Dan can't explain himself, and when JD asks who actually sent the intel, Dan refuses to show him the message, pushing JD's suspicion to a whole new level. JD immediately tells Dan to contact the chief, but instead she takes matters into her own hands and calls a DEA agent named Matt Nix. Nix is a close friend and has worked with the department many times, so Jerry reaches out to him for help, and Nix bluntly says he's almost certain Dan plans to take the money for himself, and that he may even be responsible for Jackie's death, because Jackie had likely discovered this very house, and by having him killed, Dan ended up with both the cash and the promotion. JD refuses to believe Dan could have murdered Jackie, since they were extremely close, but Nix insists and says he's on his way over. By then, the rest of the team has nearly finished counting the money, realizing they've seized a staggering $20 million, and with that kind of cash, anyone's morals can crack. Nix's suspicions are confirmed when Daisy overhears Dan's voice and tells Ro and Numa that Dan is planning to split the money among themselves and disappear before anyone else arrives. Meanwhile, JD and Ro step out onto the street and notice something deeply unsettling. There isn't a single person around, not even a stray in sight. JD starts to suspect that the cartel who threatened them has already locked down the area. On top of that, a distant light keeps blinking on and off in a steady pattern, and JD realizes someone is signaling. Wanting to check it out, she heads toward the house alone and tells Ro to hurry back and warn Dan. When Ro goes inside, she runs into Daisy, who tells her that Dan is planning to steal the money with the team and has already told the police chief they only recovered $150,000, even though their own count is close to $20 million. After hearing this, Ro notices that Lola and Numa are suddenly distant and guarded with her, and that's the moment her suspicions are fully confirmed. Just then, another call comes in from the cartel, and this time they give the team only 5 minutes to clear out of the house. Moments later, Dan shows up and demands to know why Ro came inside, and Ro tells him that Sergeant JD sent her back while JD herself went alone to check out the other house. Dan decides to head there too, taking Ro with him, but on the way he suddenly stops and asks her point blank if she's a traitor, leaving Ro completely stunned. Dan then orders her to go back to the others and moves ahead to back up JD on his own. As Ro heads back, she secretly contacts someone on her phone and warns that Dan is about to steal the money and that whatever needs to be done has to happen fast, though we still don't know who Ro has been secretly talking to, a mystery that will be revealed soon. Meanwhile, Jerry enters the house and begins searching through the darkness, completely unaware that someone is already there. silently aiming a pistol straight at her. Back inside the house, Roe promises Daisy that she'll get her out of there alive. But a short while later, Dan suddenly shows up as well, saying he went into the other house and couldn't find JD anywhere, which only deepens Roe's suspicion. Moments later, the power cuts out and the entire house goes dark, and as soon as the cops switch on their flashlights, unknown attackers open fire. Dan and Roe return fire, and in the chaos, Roe is hit and goes down wounded, while at the same time Daisy starts screaming from the next room. Numa rushes to treat Roe first, then unlocks Daisy's handcuffs, and as the firefight intensifies, the attackers begin to pull back. Dan and the others move outside to track them, but they're immediately ambushed from a pickup truck parked on the street, forcing another exchange of gunfire in which they manage to hit one of the attackers. At the same time, gunmen from nearby houses start shooting at them as well, but under heavy fire from Dan and Roe, they're forced to retreat. Right at that moment, JD suddenly emerges from the house across the street. Seeing an armed man beside JD, Dan and Roe are about to open fire, assuming he's a gangster, but Jerry quickly stops them, explaining that the man is a member of the Dark Cartel, the same group that's been stockpiling the $20 million in that house. According to him, none of them attacked the police. The man calls his boss and lets Dan and JD speak to him directly, and the boss calmly insists that no cartel member was involved in Jackie's murder and that they didn't carry out the attack either. He adds that they don't even need the $20 million and that the police are free to seize it without resistance, because killing cops would shut down their entire operation. And in their line of business, losing cash like this from time to time is just part of the game. This money means nothing to them. With that, Dan and JD allow the cartel member to leave, but once they return inside the house, Dan and JD immediately clash again. By now, JD is almost certain Dan is planning to steal the money, and she argues that this whole situation was orchestrated by the police chief so they could skim the cash, believing Jackie and Dan were both part of the plan, and that Jackie may have been killed when things went sideways over how the money would be split. Hearing all this, Dan snaps and launches a personal attack on JD, saying that when her own brother suspects her, she has no right to point fingers at anyone else. And that line sends JD completely over the edge. She loses control and goes straight at Dan, and a brutal fight breaks out between them. During the scuffle, several lit candles on a table get knocked over and the room catches fire, though they manage to put it out just in time as the others rush in and break them apart. After things calm down, Jerry calls Nix and urgently tells him to get there as fast as possible, and Nix confirms he's already on the way with an armored truck. Meanwhile, in the chaos, Roe realizes she's lost her second phone, the one she's been secretly using, and starts searching for it. When she can't find it, she asks JD for a phone, only to realize Dan had confiscated that too, cutting her off completely from whoever she's been feeding information to all along. Minutes later, DEA agent Nix arrives, and right then everyone is stunned to see the house suddenly go up in flames again, forcing them to move fast as they haul all the money bags outside and load them into the armored vehicle. Dan leaves Numa behind with Daisy, then climbs into the armored truck with JD, Roe, and Nix, setting the stage for whatever comes next. After they've driven a short distance, Dan asks where exactly the money is being taken, and Nix tells him they're heading to a DEA safe house. Dan says they should inform the police chief, but Roe cuts in and says the chief already knows about the money, to which Dan responds that knowing about the money is one thing, but does he know the actual amount? Roe fires back that it's around $20 million, then bluntly asks why Dan told everyone it was only a few $100,000. Dan laughs it off and asks her again, almost mockingly, if she's really a traitor, and that's when Roe finally snaps and lays out the entire plan, one so wild it turns everything upside down. The truth is, Jackie, the man we saw killed at the very beginning, was the first one to discover the money, and he planned to use it as bait to expose the corrupt officers in the department, knowing that if any of them tried to steal it, he'd have them dead to rights. But those corrupt cops already knew Jackie would stand in their way, so they took him out before he could spring the trap. Just moments before he was killed, Jackie had sent Dan a message from his phone about the money, and after Jackie's death, Dan realized no one inside the department was actually involved, so he put together a plan to recover the cash. Before coming here, Dan deliberately told different people different amounts, telling one it was $200,000, another $75,000, and telling Roe it was $150,000. Then staged everything so it would look like he was trying to steal the money himself, knowing that whoever murdered Jackie would definitely come after him. That's why the threatening phone calls kept mentioning $150,000, because whoever made those calls only knew the amount Dan had fed to Roe, which strongly suggests that Roe herself made the call, or that someone close to her leaked the information. And that's exactly how Dan planned to flush out Jackie's killers. He hadn't told anyone at first, but later he looped JD in on the truth, And the armed man in the house across the street had actually been there to protect JD while Dan explained the entire plan to her, after which JD played along exactly as instructed. Nix then tries one last move, offering to split the money 3 ways, and finally admitting that it was him and Roe who actually killed Jackie. Even with that kind of cash on the table, JD and Dan refuse outright. Profession and loyalty to their colleagues come first. Right then, the phone in JD's pocket starts ringing, and when she answers, it's her brother Dale on the line. They had already tipped him off before coming here, and now he's blocked the road with FBI agents. Moments later, blinding flashlights light up the scene as Dale uses a megaphone to order Nix to surrender, but Nix still keeps trying to cut a deal with JD and Dan, until JD tells him that everything he's saying is being heard live by the FBI through the phone. In the chaos, Roe pulls out her pistol again and tries to shoot Nix, sparking a struggle, then suddenly jumps out of the vehicle and takes off running. JD and Dan bail out of the car as well. FBI agents open fire, and while Nix manages to speed away in his vehicle, Roe escapes on foot with a bag slung over her shoulder. JD jumps into her brother Dale's car and takes off after Nix, chasing him down the road and firing at his vehicle, trying to force him to stop. At the same time, even though Roe gets a good head start, Dan eventually catches up to her, tackles her to the ground, and beats her down in a brutal struggle. Meanwhile, the chase between JD and Nix continues, until JD rams the back of Nix's car, sending both vehicles spinning. After a few more violent impacts, both cars flip. JD's engine stalls, then roars back to life as she floors it and slams the armored vehicle straight off a bridge. Nix crawls out of the wreckage, badly injured, and JD steps toward him like death itself as he makes one last desperate attempt to save his life, but JD fires twice and ends it right there, finally avenging the murder of the person she loved. Elsewhere, the fight between Dan and Roe drags on until Dan overpowers her, and once she realizes it's over, she gives up, allowing Dan to arrest her and hand her over to the FBI. In the finale, after the fighting is finally over, FBI agents count every last dollar and confirm that not a single bill is missing, turning Dan and his entire team into heroes within the police department. For helping crack the case and as compensation for her burned-down house, Daisy is awarded 20% of the seized money, instantly making her a millionaire, and she thanks Dan before walking away to start a new life. At the same time, Jerry and her older brother finally mend their relationship, letting go of all the anger and embracing each other. When everything is said and done, Dan and Jerry stand together to honor Jackie's memory, satisfied that they've fully avenged his death. And the movie closes on this hard-earned happy ending. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.